Well, let's get back to our guests, both in Abuja and in Lagos. Well, let me ask, because, I mean, Alhaji Yakasai OFR, you have been in politics. Chief Clerk, you have also been in politics. Well, Mr. Adesina, you are in government in the meantime, other than Prof, who is of the academia. If I were to ask all of you, because there are several generations, I mean, our generation will always say, your generation, Alhaji Yakasai, Chief Clerk, and then Mr. Adesina, you're currently in government talking about leadership. They say you have failed us in terms of the ideals, what you had at that time. It's not what you left or what we're experiencing at the moment. Let me start with Alhaji Yakasai.
Yes. Well, if you know what I know, by 1966, the Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, had a program for the transformation of Nigeria. Part of his program was the extension of railway system to all nooks and crannies of Nigeria. He had a plan to take railways from Jos to Bauchi, from Bauchi to Gombe, from Gombe to Maiduguri, which he did. It was commissioned a year before he was assassinated. Part of that program was to take railways from Gusau to Sokoto, from Sokoto to Kebbi, from Kebbi to Yauri. Then it will be taken from Enugu to Calabar. I don't know whether it will go through Uyo somehow. And then it will be extended from Oranamoda to Katsina. Then he introduced a program of the drainage of River Niger from Wuri to Lokoja, from there to link up with railway extension at Yauri. The idea was to allow ocean-going ships to come as deep as Yauri, and whatever cargo is discharged from there will be taken to the other parts of the country. He also introduced the Trans-Sahara route, that a road network that would start from northern part of the country down to Libya, Morocco, and the rest of the North African countries. He also planned to develop electricity. He started by Kayinji Dam. Kayinji Dam was a multi-purpose water conservancy arrangement. First for the generation of electricity, and later on for irrigation. He started new Busa pilot scheme, whereby crops will be tested as to which one will be able to survive irrigation farming and which one will not. And the idea was to turn Nigeria, the entire Nigerian nation, into a country that is operating or running agriculture on irrigation basis.
All right, Alhaji Yakasai, again, we'll have to take a quick commercial break, but we will be back, and then the others will have a chance to also respond to the question. Do join us again. Welcome back to Nigeria 56. We're coming to you live from our studios in Lagos. Well, Channel TV's data and information analyst Babajide Ogunso joins us now. He also has been digging in to see Independence Day. What has happened previously, and is there any indication of where we're headed? Jide?
Yes, thanks, Chamberlain. The president is a veteran of Independence Day speeches, And let's look at exactly what he said in his first speech, October 1st, 1984. He had 3 wishes then. He had clearly wished about what was going on to the detainees, and he had released 250 detainees then. And he had also talked about special military tribunals. Clearly, this wouldn't apply for today. But 2 other things he had wished about. He had talked about patience and understanding that was going to be in the real interest of the people. So this quote that was made in 1984 is still very relevant. The 3rd wish he had was talking about firmness, justice, and even-handedness. Now, these 2 quotes here are still very relevant in terms of looking at what the president potentially said then and what he's saying right now. But let's look at some other next quotes that the president has said. He then had one primary responsibility in his speech in 1984 on Independence Day, and his primary responsibility then was agriculture. Today's speech, you can still see his primary responsibility is still agriculture. So we see a similarity between what he had said 3 decades and 2 years ago and what he said today. Let's also look at some other thing that is interesting. He had one main plan. Then it was to balance earnings and to balance spending. Again, we see a lot of similarities with what he said in 1984 on Independence Day and what he's saying today. Let's also look at some other interesting thing that he said, and that was looking at what was frustrating him. Now, what was frustrating him then was the senseless greed of elites in Nigeria. Now, the president clearly hasn't said what is frustrating him today, but what we know from what he did last on Independence Day in 1984 was some other thing that was memorable. And if we look at what comes as another most memorable quote from the president, now we know he is a veteran of all these favorite quotes. Now, his most memorable quote in 1984 was when he said, "There is a limit to what the government can do for you, but there is no limit to what you can do for yourself." Now, that was his most popular soundbite in 1984. But let's also even look at what has happened to every other president on 1 year of independence. Now, in 1984, this was the headline, October 1st, from the Punch newspaper. The summary of what we have here is the FMG gets 112 million naira from looters. We can summarize this in 3 words: very serious problems. We'll also look at what were the headlines 1 year into Obasanjo's regime. Nothing to cheer about. Balarabe, Falaye, and others. We can see Anyim shakes the Senate. This was 1 year into President Obasanjo's term. Again, we can summarize that with 3 words: very serious problems. Let's also look at what were the headlines. October 1st, 1 year into the tenure of Yar'Adua. No quick fix for Nigeria's problems, Yar'Adua. On the top of it, we can see Buhari's appeal full of calamities. That was INEC. Again, if we look at all the headlines here, in 2008, 1 year into Yar'Adua's tenure, we can summarize it again with only 3 words: very serious problems. Now, let's look at 1 year into Goodluck Jonathan's administration. On Independence Day as well, what were the headlines? Terrorism, Jonathan to mark independence within the villa. I can't solve Nigeria's problems alone, the president. Again, 1 year into Jonathan's administration, we can use 3 words to summarize the headlines: very serious problems. Today, let's look at what were the headlines today. Again, I will continue to blame Nigeria's woes on PDP, the FG scouts for more evidence to nail Saraki, others. The summary of what you have here, again, look at the CBN's governor's wife kidnapped. The summary of today's headlines as well show there are very serious problems in Nigeria. So we've seen a consistency of serious problems, right from the headlines in 1984 to the anniversary headlines of Jonathan, of Obasanjo, Jonathan, Yar'Adua, Jonathan, and today's headlines. But more important than all these headlines that have shown us very serious problems is to look at how the president spoke today. And if we look at the key things he said, we can clearly see a different president compared to last year. Last year, how many times did he, for instance, mention the word jobs? 0. This time, he mentioned the word jobs twice. Last year, how many times did he mention agriculture? 0. This year, he mentioned agriculture 5 times, Chamberlain. Last year, how many times did he use the word economy? 0. This year, he's mentioned the economy 7 times. Now, not only is he using some very firm words this time around, we can clearly see that even last year his speech was for only 10 minutes. Just a little over 1,000 words. This time around, the president spoke for 25 minutes. And he does seem to also be taking a little bit more responsibility, especially if you look at the use of his pronouns. Last year, he had used the word we, referring to all of us, 29 times. This time around, he only used the word we 25 times. Last year, he used the word I 13 times. But this time around, he's taking a little more responsibility by using the word I even more frequently in this year's speech. So we see him use the word I 19 times in today's speech compared to 13 times last year. And we see him also use the word we less this year compared to last year. So we clearly can feel that he's taking on more responsibility, and he also seems to be feeling a bit more heat because he's spending more time to explain the policies of the government, using 25 minutes this time around compared to 10 minutes last year. But one problem, or one thing that concerns us today, is to notice that even though the president is spending more time, speaking more, and taking on more responsibility, his speech does seem to have slowed down. This time, this year, it was moving at 93 words per minute. Last year, it was moving at 102 words per minute. It even gets more interesting if you look at the speech at the UN Assembly last year on the 28th of September. It was moving at 113 words per minute. Now, there are a lot of reasons why the president's speech could have slowed down. One is perhaps a calmer president. Perhaps some other reasons that we do not have enough time to discuss. But clearly, this year's speech from the president was significantly better from what we heard last year. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. Babajide Ogunsanwo, Channel Service Data and Information Analyst. Thank you for your thoughts today. Well, we'll take another break and we will be back.